Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, December 21st, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know we are a news podcast, so we do try to watch your language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we, start this? We start this, well, I was going to start with Trump just because that news is interesting, but I want to let all these people know that you wish for a white Christmas. Did you really wish for snow? Did you really want to have that Yuletide by the fire with your faces all aglow? Well, I hate you all.
Of the brutal cold. I want to bring in Cheryl Scott from our Chicago station, WLS. So, Cheryl, tell us, what can we expect?
Yes, the cold air, it's arriving late tonight and will continue across much of the country here as we go into the next 48 hours. Take a look at the watches and alerts. Basically, the entire country here draped with a winter alert of some sort, even a blizzard warning in parts of Minnesota. But it's really this Arctic air that's going to continue to surge to the south. Denver, today's high 47, overnight dropping to 16 below. That is a 60-degree temperature change in a short amount of time, a shock to the system. These wind chills, dangerously cold all the way down to the deep south. Dallas, Friday morning, it's going to feel like it's 7 below, and wind chills across the northern plains 50 to 60 below zero. Dangerous, life-threatening cold will persist, sliding to the east. But with this storm, not only rain, snow, some whiteout conditions, but also very high gusty winds, upwards of 40 to 60 miles per hour along the I-95 corridor here from Philadelphia up towards New York, even Boston. High winds here on Friday, definitely going to disrupt travel. Plan for delays and cancellations before the Christmas holiday. Alexis?
Yes. I blame you people who all wish for this. Guess what? Mother Nature heard you. I hate you all. Aside from that, guys, again, it's the holiday season. Yes, we are about to get hit with one of the worser storms that we've had in recent years. So I say this with all sincerity. Please be safe when traveling holiday season. Like I said, you're not going to beat Mother Nature. Mother Nature's undefeated. But again, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the holidays. Be with your loved ones or friends and family. And happy holidays. So I'll say that part because, again, we didn't really need this, especially if you're in the South. We are not prepped for this kind of stuff. Anyway, moving right along, we do need to catch the next part because there has been news that has been developing over the last 48 hours. And if you're Donald Trump, former failure in chief, you're not going to like the next three things we play.
Was going on, there is still news developing on the January 6th front. The chairman of the committee charged with investigating the attack, Benny Thompson, on his way into this ceremony where all the January 6th committee members sat together, told reporters that the committee has made a decision on the question of whether they would make criminal referrals. Thompson telling reporters and given several opportunities to clarify otherwise that the committee has decided that they will issue at least one referral. Now, he's not specific about to whom or how many referrals could be released here. And, in reporting on this committee since its inception, I feel like I should share that sometimes Thompson gets a little bit ahead of the rest of the committee here. It's been our reporting at NBC News that the committee is still in active discussions about this question, about whether or not they would refer individuals, and if so, how many. And then, in fact, they were expected to continue those discussions today. So whether Thompson is perhaps ahead of the committee, perhaps the committee has made a decision that hasn't filtered down all the way through, or perhaps he is putting his own finger on the scale of the decision that is yet to be made here. not entirely clear, but you cannot ignore the chairman of this committee on the record saying that, yes, at least that one decision has been made to move from a congressional investigation to at least suggesting to the Department of Justice in the form of a referral that criminal charges be made against at least one individual.
So Garrett, you don't necessarily think, from what I'm hearing from you, that considering how Benny Thompson has kind of talked about these things before, that this was necessarily purposeful, right, or coordinated in his release of this information leading into this, of course, ceremony?
No, I think purposeful or coordinated. No, I think not. He was pressed by a gaggle of reporters just before going in about this question. And look, Yasmin, he had every opportunity to clarify his answer and say, maybe we're still discussing this, or maybe it's not quite clear. But he did say that this is a decision that has been made. And so I don't know that it's necessarily news he wanted to make leading into this ceremony, but the news is out there. And the committee, particularly when it comes to kind of legal decisions that they make, whether it be issuing subpoenas, probably the most notable examples, they tend to be very, very careful about not making these notices public until they have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, till their lawyers have looked over everything. And it may very well be here that a decision has been made in principle, but that the necessary documents haven't been drafted up, or that the necessary legal decisions to sort of the follow-through elements have not been made. That's certainly going to be a target of my reporting for the rest of the day.
Come on now. Come on now. Yes, the January 6th committee has already considered one case of criminal referral to the Department of Justice. The rest of the world, come on now. We all, at this point, by now, know who is the target / person of interest. We all knew what this January 6th commission ideal was going to look into. It wasn't broad-ended, just like the Mueller investigation wasn't broad-ended, although it brought many people indicted, some arrested, some actually got jail time. But we all know where this January 6th commission is headed. And the fact that we are discussing criminal referrals, who else could it be who they're referring to? That's right, they didn't say it, but the writing's on the wall. It's Trump. And again, I got nothing against it. You want to know why I've got nothing against it? Because it was obvious, and we've been saying it multiple times on this podcast. He is responsible for the January 6th commission. He's responsible for the mob that was sent to the U.S. Senate because they were conducting a congressional progression of counting the electoral votes. They were terrorists that treaded upon congressional soil, and he was the ringleader because he knew he lost the election. We already know what's going to happen. Now, the reason why this is happening, because again, guys, the clock is running out on this Congress. By next year in January, the 118th Congress will be sworn in, and that the House is ran by Republicans. Republicans have already said they're going to launch investigations. All of them BS. All of them without merit. But they're going to launch investigations, and they can do so because they have overture in the House. Now, the Democrats may have majority in the Senate, and we still may have a Democratic president, but trust and believe, Republicans are going to muddy the waters as soon as humanly possible. So that means that the current Congress has very limited time to get processes in place to where Republicans cannot stop it. So we definitely know it's time. But to sit there and say they're going to refer more than one criminal referral to the Department of Justice, we all know where this is going. Because you want to know why? That wasn't the only little bit of news that came out about the January 6th Commission.
Ways and Means Committee voted yesterday to make 6 years of former President Donald Trump's tax returns public. The information could end years of speculation about his business dealings and personal wealth. The committee released a report concluding that the IRS failed to pursue mandatory audits of Trump on a timely basis during his presidency. It raises new questions about his claim that he could not release his tax filings because of the ongoing.
Yes, they also, although this wasn't the January 6th committee, but they did decide that, I'm sorry, I apologize, that the January 6th committee did decide that they will release 6 years Trump tax returns to the public. Now, if you guys have followed my podcast last year, we followed a story where the New York Times was able to get a hold of a 20-year-old tax return that was done by Donald J. Trump, where he written off $1 billion of loss and paid $0 in taxes. Now, that was nearly 20 years ago, 2 decades ago. Could you imagine the last 6 years of Trump's tax returns and the fact that the IRS has failed to audit him? Not realizing for the simple fact of the matter is that who was over the U.S. Treasury at the time? That's right, Steve Mnuchin, the same person whose main job at the Department of Treasury was to make sure that Donald Trump's taxes never got out. So, again, why should we be concerned about Trump's tax returns? Well, aside from the fact the IRS failed to audit him, that he's paid $0 in taxes, just goes to show you he is every bit the con man that you think he is. And even more so, listen to this next person when they sat there and said, well, when we got his tax returns, guess what we found?
You've spent hours behind closed doors. You've just come out from the vote. Can you first explain to me exactly what you all are voting to do? Are we going to see a summary of some sort, or are we going to see all of the tax returns?
Both, but for a limited period. Yes, Aaron, we've been at it for about the last 3.5 hours discussing all aspects of this. Now there will be a report to the House prepared by Chairman Neal and his staff, a very thorough report. It includes a number of attachments. It includes additional analysis from the Joint Tax Committee, and it will also include some Trump tax returns.
And is that's good? We're going to get sort of one thing, an executive summary, attachments, and some of the tax returns. That's going to be it. We're not also going to get all the tax returns, just to be very clear here.
You will get all of the tax returns that the Supreme Court and the lower courts said that Mr. Neal's request could get. You will get all of those. That may be delayed for a few days only to permit time to redact things like Social Security numbers, personal ID numbers, that type of thing. But you will get the complete Trump tax returns, such as they are, for the years that Mr. Neal requested.
Okay, so that's 2015 through 2020, just to be clear, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think what I find surprising, our focus had been on the IRS audit and whether it was being done properly, is the IRS did no audits at all until such time as the day they received Mr. Neal's request for these documents, and that day they requested the first audit. They have yet to complete a single audit of Mr. Trump, and I think they'll also be surprised by what's not there with the tax returns, and that is supporting data. Any taxpayer who goes in for audit has to produce some receipts and some affidavits and some substantiation, and that just seems to be missing from what we've been provided.
So again, you wonder why it's all connected. I'll tell you why it's all connected. Because not only for the fact that Donald Trump may be seeing criminal charges, although he wasn't the person named by the January 6th Commission, although his taxes very soon will be released to the public for a short time, and it's all connected. And that's why I said, if you're Donald Trump right now, you are not having the best day ever. In fact, you should be a little concerned, considering the fact that you just announced that you're running for 2024. And again, if he is indicted on any of these charges, he's ineligible from holding any type of U.S. office, which would be great for the economy because it kind of tanked under him badly. But again, this is the whole point of that. No, the questions that they're asking, which again will be questions that will not be asked by the next congressional Congress, is the fact that the IRS didn't do the audit. So remember Trump's whole lie during the entire campaign? Oh, well, it's audited. You know, it goes through audits. I can't really rush the process. You got to wait for it to come through. But right now I'm being audited. And we just found out that there wasn't an audit. So if you think about the entire time he was running against Hillary Clinton, that he kept on saying that it's under audit, he can't release them, it was bullshit. And yet, and I say and yet, you will find his cult fans will argue, this is the witch hunt, he won the election. you can go down the list. But at this point, in the fact that the January 6th Commission is plotting a target release date of today, if possible, that they'll release those records, it says a lot. Even more so, keep in mind, the Trump Organization just in New York was found guilty of defrauding as far as values on their properties. The Trump Organization was just found guilty. His COO was just found guilty. Do you not think in this house of cards there's going to be other things that are going to be falling? I believe so. All I can sit there and say now is, as it gets referred to the Department of Justice, what is Trump going to say? Because he's been awfully quiet. And I do mean awfully quiet. I mean, don't get me wrong, a quiet Trump is always a great thing, but he's been silent. And I've always said it best, even though I love the old school mafia and gangster movies, there are no happy endings in gangster and mafia movies. So Trump may be getting fitted for an orange jumpsuit a lot sooner than we think he will be. But again, the question I would ask is, the IRS didn't do an audit when he said he's under audit. The fact that he's already written off billions of dollars in tax returns, and we're going to find out that he didn't pay tax returns. He didn't pay anything in taxes last year. But again, it's going to be a fun old time for good old Trump, because he is facing so many lawsuits on so many fronts, and yet none of them are working well out in his favor. Says a lot, doesn't it? But move right along. I can't help about not talking about this bank, because number one, I am surprised this bank is still around. And number two, I'm surprised that people bank there. Yes, I am talking about Wells Fargo. Not because of previous actions, but the most recent one, which again speaks volumes how this bank is allowed to operate.
Morning, another scandal is rocking Wells Fargo. The bank has been ordered to pay $3.7 billion to settle a number of violations, including charging illegal fees and interest on auto loans and mortgages, and incorrectly taking overdraft fees. In a statement, the CEO says the bank identified a series of unacceptable practices that we have been working systematically to change.
It seems that they are not only too big to fail, they're also too big to jail.
It's the latest in a string of massive fines for Wells Fargo. In 2020, the bank paid $3 billion after employees opened millions of phony accounts without the customer's knowledge in order to meet sales goals. As the employees falsified records, investigators say the bank collected millions in fees, reportedly targeting minorities who speak little English, along with college students and seniors.
You had to open 10 accounts every single day.
Since at least 2016, Senator Elizabeth Warren has urged federal regulators to break up Wells Fargo, once calling the bank's former CEO gutless at a congressional hearing.
Have you resigned as CEO or chairman of Wells Fargo?
The board, I serve at
Have you resigned?
No, I've not.
Have you returned one nickel of the money you earned while this scam was going on?
And the board will do.
I will take that as a no then.
Warren applauded the latest fine against Wells Fargo, calling it much needed accountability.
Yeah, accountability is all well and good. Let's think about what just happened. Okay, they just sat there and said, just a few years ago, Wells Fargo their employees created millions of phony credit card and bank accounts using real people's identities. I don't know about you guys. That's identity theft. If I did identity theft, I'm more than likely going to be in jail for at least a couple of years. This bank does identity theft. It pays a fine. Its CEO, the one they showed at the time, had resigned. Now, same said bank is caught again using people's information to basically bank on them. Overdraft fees, things of that nature. How is it, and I ask this question all the time, how is it that Wells Fargo, number one, is how they're able to operate? Now, I used to, they always sit there and say, if you want to rob a bank, use a gun. If you want to rob the government, open up a bank. I get it. But at some point, when are banks going to be held liable for their actions? because this is identity theft, not once, even though it's identity theft once, but the wrongfully seizing customers' homes and cars and overdraft fees. How are the doors of Wells Fargo still allowed to remain open, still allow people to bank, and all that in between? How? Because if I'm in the government, I mean, yes, accountability is all well and great, but when do we finally sit there and say, no, on behalf of the people, you're not allowed to operate as a bank? That you should be broken up, that you should be separated. But then it goes into the whole monopolies thing and the antitrust laws. But again, this is the reason, number one, why I will never bank with Wells Fargo. Number two, how are they allowed to operate when not one person is in jail? CEOs can resign and get golden parachutes. Another one gets put in. The bank pays a fine, which by now has already paid in the last, this is probably going to be another $3 billion fine. So if you really add to 3.7 they paid just a few years ago, they've paid nearly $7 billion in fines to the U.S. government. You probably I don't understand how this bank is allowed to operate. I don't. When they have clearly had criminal activity, not once, now twice, and yet its doors are still open. Make that make sense, because I can't. But next story I want to get to, you guys, of course, city of Buffalo, where the shooting happened in the supermarket. A case that's been similar to another case that's happened, where a gun manufacturer was sued. In this case, the city of Buffalo filed a lawsuit against the entire gun industry itself.
The city of Buffalo, New York, has filed a lawsuit suing ghost gun companies, gun manufacturers, and other firearm industry members for practices allegedly fueling gun violence in the city. 10 people were killed in a mass shooting at a grocery store in a predominantly black Buffalo neighborhood last May. The mayor said the aim of the lawsuits is to fight illegal gun possession by holding gun makers accountable for how weapons are marketed and distributed.
And they should. Now, again, I could be remiss and not sit there and say that, yes, ghost guns, which you probably heard of, not a lot recently. Ghost guns are guns that just come in kits, which means that with some simple tools and some YouTube, you could assemble a gun together and you have a fully working firearm. Here's the problem with ghost guns. Ghost guns do not have serial numbers. They are completely untraceable guns. And that's always been a problem. Ghost guns should have serial numbers. They should be tracked because, like, if you've ever bought a firearm before, every firearm has a serial number in multiple places. And if they purchase them, there is a paper trail to get back to said person to determine who has said gun. So, and Biden at one point was trying to get ghost guns to be either illegal or to be serialized. And the gun industry and some homosexuals out there argued against it. I have yet to figure out why. Because ghost guns don't require you to be of legal age. Almost anybody with money, internet access can purchase a ghost gun. Still currently. I even said in my home state of Tennessee, as long as you have a driver's license and money and you go to a gun trade knife store, gun trade knife show, you can get a firearm. Easy. They don't do background checks there. I mean, I can go into this whole spill, but suing the gun industry as far as the companies of all things of that nature, I get it. It needs to be done because the gun law that was just put in place 3 months ago, it's really geared to Republicans. Because number one, the stance that we need to take on gun laws and registration and manufacturing and tracking things of that nature, it needs to be a hard stance. It's just that those out there think that it's too restrictive when it's really not. Because if you really think about it, none of the gun laws that are currently out there prevent your everyday citizen from getting a gun unless you have a record, you're a domestic abuser, you have been to jail for a murderous crime. If you are a felon, those things right there you pretty much eliminate anybody that shouldn't have a gun. But keep in mind, everybody always says, well, criminals, that won't stop criminals from getting guns. You're right. Most criminals go to gun trade knife shows because no background checks are done there. It's not your usual, I'm going to go to this person that's in this dark alley that has a trunk full of guns. It doesn't work that way. And saying, if you really think about it, most of the shootings that have happened recently are not by illegal guns. These are by purchased legal. They have found legal ways to purchase these firearms and they use them. All the more reason why gun laws should be implemented, why the gun industry should be heavily regulated, and I am all for it. And maybe, just maybe, this lawsuit, which we will follow, may be better for it. At least we hope. But other news that did come out, guys, we did actually get sentencing, which I thought was really, really quick. Not complaining. But ex-officer Aaron Dean, who had killed, I should say, let's just be honest, he murdered Tatiana Jefferson. Well, he got his sentencing, and he is getting 12 years.
More on that breaking news we told you about. Aaron Dean, that former Texas police officer who fatally shot Tatiana Jefferson, has been sentenced to nearly 12 years in prison. Just got in these pictures and just got word on the verdict as it was reached. Bernarda Villalona joining us now, former homicide prosecutor, still attorney at law. So are you surprised? I know this is all kind of happening really fast, but are you surprised that he got it looks like 11 years, almost 12 years, 11 years, 10 months to be exact, and 12 days for the shooting death of Tatiana Jefferson?
Hi, Kira. I'm not surprised that Aaron Dean was sentenced to almost 11 years incarceration. Remember, the purpose of sentencing and what was reiterated to the jury is for deterrent, punishment, and rehabilitation. The defense did a good job in the sense of asking and pleading the jury to say that there's no need to rehabilitate him because he was on the job, no longer on the job, so this is not going to happen again. So there's no means for deterrence. However, the prosecutor was very clear. Look, probation was not a recommended sentence here by the prosecution because Tatiana Jefferson's life is worth more than 15 minutes of a probation interview per month. So that's why they went above the 10 years, because I think if they would have went under the 10 years, remember that the judge would have been able to just sentence him to probation. So in terms of, look, 11 years, that's not worth the life of Miss Jefferson, but at least they have some kind of closure. Remember, Amber Geiger was sentenced to 10 years and was tried in Texas.
And the jury heard from several witnesses after more than 13 hours of deliberation. Do you think that was a pretty quick decision by the jury?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think they have to take into account, you have to remember when it comes to police officers, that it's very hard for a jury to try to comprehend and wrap their mind around that a police officer went out there that morning to work with intent to kill someone. That's why I think that they came with a compromise verdict of finding him guilty of manslaughter as opposed to the intentional murder. So the jury was grappling and took their time and trying to, one, reach a verdict and came back with a guilty. But two, when it came to the sentencing, they didn't reach a verdict yesterday. They went out overnight and were sequestered, and they thought about what should be the appropriate sentence, but it's clear that it wasn't probation.
Former Texas police officer Aaron Dean, almost 12 years. He's been sentenced to prison for the shooting death of Tatiana Jefferson. Bernarda, thanks so much for coming in on the last minute for us. And
okay, so I want to point something out here. For all those that don't remember the Tatiana Jefferson, forgive me if I mispronounce her name, case, she was playing video games with her nephew. The officer, Aaron Dean, was approaching the house, saw the door was open, and decided to go around to the window. He saw Miss Jefferson and fired through the window. Yeah, no reason to shoot. Decided with guns drawn, instead of knocking on the door of an open house, knocking on the door, which door was visited, door was open, screen door was closed, and instead of knocking on the door and assessing the situation there, decides to go around, and therefore that fateful moment of finding the window where she was with her nephew and she was shot and killed. 12 years. It amazes me so that why is it that officers always get some type of, I won't say leniency. Leniency seems a little too good of a word, but they always get consideration. They mentioned Amber Geiger. Amber Geiger, who not only went to the wrong apartment, but shot an unarmed black man, got 10 years, where the bailiff consoled her, fixed her hair, the brother consoled her, and at the same time, she only got 10 years. Aaron Dean is only going to get 12 years for ending a life. that wasn't of no threat to his own. All I can sit there and say at this point is, when are we going to stop using the cop excuse for not giving them longer sentences that we would give regular people for doing the same type of crime? It's like, oh, well, they took into consideration he was a law enforcement officer. Shouldn't that kind of make you a little bit concerned that a law enforcement officer decided, because they're used to trying to use lethal force, that at that moment he decided lethal force was necessary? At that moment? Should we not be questioning his judgment of why he didn't stay at the door and assess for somebody to come at the door? Did he assess there was danger? Did he assess that something was going on? Why do we not question the fact of his actions, but we give leniency to his actions when another life was taken? Oh, but he's an officer. But if it was anybody else that did the same thing, I'm almost certain it would have been about 40 plus years or life that would have been given to that individual had they did the same crime, but not a cop. Make it make sense to me, because it's amazing when they said the jury had, I mean, don't get me wrong, the jury came to a pretty quick verdict. But as you heard from the reporter, that they couldn't come to a decision the first day, came back and finally came to a decision. Doesn't that concern you that in most cases, where for the simple fact of the matter that as something as open and shut as this is, that for some odd reason we couldn't get a conclusion to this point where the officer literally used his weapon when he did not have to, took a life at no threat of his own, and yet is not hit with the maximum penalty, but 12 years. And trust me, it'll be 12 years in a protected area because he's law enforcement. Because they're not going to put law enforcement in with general population just out of fear that they're not going to make it that long. But it's going to be a little hard for him now, because now everybody knows who he is. And look, we've seen enough Locked Up and those other shows to know you can get got anywhere. But I'm just making this point that whenever it's officers, why is that consideration taken into place when sentencing? Because anybody else would have gotten 4 times the amount of years that Aaron got, that all the ex-officer got. 12 years, 10 years, 12 years. To me, it's not justice. It isn't. Because what are we saying? Are we saying the lives of minorities when killed by law enforcement really don't amount to what the actual penalty should be? Because that's what we're saying. That as long as an officer kills a minority, he or she's not going to do a lot of time. Historically. Now we see Amber Guyver. Now we've seen Aaron Donald. Just making a point. Why is it that when minorities are killed by law enforcement are seeing less than 20 years, less than 15 in some cases? Make it make sense. But again, some other news I did want to cover, because I want to dispel the fact that billionaires are brilliant, intelligent, and that they make their own money. Some of them just get money as a graduation gift. Elon Musk is one of them. Since buying Twitter, Twitter has become basically the cesspool of social media. Racial slurs have more than quantified 100 times over. Blue checks are available to anybody, and you can put any name up there. It has just been a mess since Elon Musk spent $44 billion buying Twitter. And now, after their most recent poll, if you can believe it, Elon Musk is stepping down as the chief twit of Twitter and looking for a replacement. I wish I could make this up.
Announcing overnight that he plans to resign as the CEO of Twitter just as soon as he finds a replacement foolish enough to take the job. Those are his words. Andrew Dimbert, not foolish enough to take the job, but here with the details. Good morning, Andrew.
Well, it hasn't been offered to me just yet. Good morning, Rebecca. So Elon Musk says he's out as CEO of Twitter after the results of a poll he posted on Twitter. Musk hasn't officially stepped down just yet, telling his 122 million followers his resignation comes with a catch. Overnight, Elon Musk announcing he is stepping down from his new role at Twitter, posting, "I will resign as CEO as soon as I find someone foolish enough to take the job." The decision coming just 3 days after he launched a poll with the caption, "Should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll." Of the more than 17.5 million voters, 57.5% said yes. The poll came days after Musk suspended the accounts of multiple journalists from major news outlets for allegedly violating Twitter's new doxing policy for sharing tweets by an account that posted publicly available data about Musk's private jet.
You dox, you get suspended, end of story. That's it.
But the following day, Musk reinstated all the accounts. Since the billionaire took control of the company in a $44 billion deal in October, he has sparked backlash and worry for the company's future, making immediate and drastic cuts to staff, overturning content moderation rules, and even sending Tesla's stock tumbling by selling off shares to fund the social media giant. And some experts say those sinking Tesla shares may be the real reason he's stepping back from Twitter. Rebecca?
Andrew, thank you. Yeah, those shares.
Again, billionaires are not the geniuses that you think they are, especially in Elon Musk's case. Now, I will say this because I say with a grain of salt, he says he's stepping down. Keep in mind, this is the same Elon Musk that approached the World Hunger Organization and said, show me how $6 billion could end world hunger and I'll give it. And they did. And he was quiet. So will Elon Musk step down as CEO of Twitter? Time will tell on that, because again, this isn't the first time he says he's going to step down from something and he didn't do it. But at the same time, if I was to give a suggestion, I think there's a man out there. I think there's a man out there that we all loved, that he had a site. It was great because not only was it a site, it was social media in its early heyday when we moved away from the AIM and the AOL chat rooms. It was a site that allowed you to play music. You got to learn a little bit of coding. You actually got to learn JavaScript HTML coding, actually, which may have actually led people to coding. And all because of one man. Yes, and he was the first friend you ever met. Who am I talking about? Tom. Which I cannot make this up. The actual MySpace Tom has went on Twitter and said, I will gladly take the job. Could you imagine this day and age that who knew on their 2022 bingo card that MySpace Tom would throw his hat in the ring as being the new CEO of Twitter? I didn't have that on my bingo card, but I wouldn't be against it either, because to this day, I still feel like Tom gave us everything and we turned our backs on him. But that's a whole nother story. But moving on, guys, I cannot help because I feel within this country, there's always this weird thing about people always saying that their opinions are being trampled upon or not being heard, or that we're heading toward this, or that this group has an agenda and all this thing and all this nature. Well, unfortunately, there is a group out there, especially in my backwards state of Tennessee, but they are going after something, and I wish I could make this up. I really wish I did. But there is a bill out there in Tennessee that is limiting education by those willing to teach children. But there are those out there of the religious variety that swear up and down these groups of people have an agenda to turn children. I'm talking about drag queens giving story time to children, and how there's a bill out there to limit that in Tennessee. I wish I could make this up. I really wish I could.
Tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. And the latest fight, yet another fight, you could say, considering the conversation we just had in the culture wars in America, relates to drag shows. Across the country, we're seeing lawmakers propose restrictions on these kinds of shows. And at the same time, they're being targeted more and more often by far-right groups, these events. Just this year, at least 124 drag events faced anti-LGBTQ protests or significant threats, according to GLAAD, an advocacy group. And the LGBTQ plus community not backing down. NBC's Kathy Park takes us to Tennessee, where some are getting ready to fight back.
Veronica Electronica's 21 and Up weekend brunch show is a staple of Nashville's drag scene. But today, the show stops for an announcement.
They want want to make drag performances illegal if it's in the public view. So right now, if that law passes, I would be committing a potential felony. Just letting you know.
Tennessee Republican State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson introduced Senate Bill 3.
The intent of the legislation is just to simply say that you cannot have sexually explicit entertainment, adult-themed entertainment, in a public venue where kids might be present.
The LGBTQ plus community have come out saying, look, it targets our community. How do you respond to that?
Well, I disagree. We're protecting kids and families and parents who want to be able to take their kids to public places. We're not attacking anyone or targeting anyone. I've heard references to this bill that it will ban drag shows. Well, no, it won't. It just says you can't do something that's sexually explicit. It won't prevent someone dressed in drag from being in a parade or being in public.
But Veronica and LGBTQ advocates worry this legislation could create misconceptions that drag is inherently sexual.
I don't know who will be the drag police to judge whether my performance was adult oriented.
What does it mean when someone who is dancing shakes their hips? Cheerleaders clearly do it. Dance teams clearly do it. If a drag queen does it, does that suddenly make it sexual?
Bianca Del Rio, love that dress.
The audience for drag is growing. Drag Story Hour, a nonprofit that holds book readings for kids with drag hosts, went from 1 chapter in 2015 to 45 in the U.S. today. But interest in drag comes amid Republican lawmakers in at least 5 states considering bills to limit drag when children are present.
Reclaim America!
Earlier this month, far-right groups, including the Proud Boys and some armed members, shut down an Ohio drag story time.
Life, liberty, victory, or death!
Tennessee has seen 6 events targeted, plus swirling outrage online over videos like this one, showing what appears to be children handing dollar bills to a drag performer.
There have been news reports about some of these events taking place where parents are there with their kids and they were mortified. That's who reached out to me and some of my colleagues and led us to pursue this legislation.
For Veronica, outrage like this shows a misunderstanding of drag culture. She says tipping is not sexual.
We tip our servers, we tip our bartenders, we tip our hairstylists, and we tip our drag queens. It's just a gesture of appreciation.
Senator Johnson plans to move quickly on the bill after the new year.
As a parent, it's something that I worry about all the time, what my kids are being exposed to.
Now Veronica and her fellow drag queens are ramping up for the political fight of their lives on and off the stage. Kathy Park, NBC.
Okay, how do we unpack this? Okay, first and foremost, it is amazing to me how Republicans, and again, I know I live in the South, I see it all the time, and forget my language, they're fucking idiots. It's a show. First and foremost, I like drag queen story. I like drag queen story time. I think it's great that people want to read to kids, to get them to read, because again, most kids have been on most electronic devices that can do a lot more than just showing them YouTube and TikTok and social media. And that the simple fact of the matter, they just show that libraries still exist and that individuals such as drag queens want to literally read a book to children to get them to understand is brilliant. In my opinion, it's brilliant. It gets kids to read. At the same time, we are teaching cultural sensitivity to children. The one thing that we all want children to do is to accept others different than them, to accept them as their own, to not judge them. That's a little bit of it too, because you know what? You had to do it for Black people. You had to do it for us. Remember so long ago, Tennessee? Wasn't that long ago that you guys decided that slavery needed to be removed from our actual Constitution? Who knew? In 2022, you finally decided that slavery needed to be removed from our Constitution. Bravo, you progressive sumbitches. The point I'm making out of all this is, this is harmful because you know why? Some stuck-up conservatives don't like what they say. Oh, well, you just can't show it in public, in the public view. Really? You're worried about a drag show being seen on Broadway. So we're going to miss everything else that's on Broadway? Public drunkenness on Broadway? The endless bridal parties, the drunken pubs, the scooters that cause wrecks, and just debauchery that happens? You can name any bar, whether it's Jason Aldean's or Blake Shelton's or any other place, the Orchid. I can keep going down lists because Music City is full of bars. And where there's bars, there's honkies. Where there's honkies, there's drunk folks. Where there's drunk folks, there's law enforcement and possible other things being shown, especially if you go to Printer's Alley. The point I'm making is we have all that's going on, that this bill is severely targeting one group. Oh, well, we just don't want debauchery to be shown in public. This comes from the same city that had about 5 strip clubs in the downtown area for the longest time. Granted, there are none now. There are none now except for 2 that's on the outskirts. But at one point, there wasn't a bill to get rid of them. No. There wasn't a bill to get rid of them till you decided that, oh, it needed to go. But drag queens and drag shows. Oh, well, we don't want our kids subjected to sexual content. You go to a Titans game. Look, I hate to break it to you. Have you been to a Titans game? Have you seen a cover-up cheerleader? Have you been to Hooters? Have you seen a cover-up waitress? Have you been to any place? Twin Peaks. I'll do another one. Twin Peaks. I don't know if you ever noticed, but if you ever went to Twin Peaks, the waitress is there, slight wardrobe problem. I mean, he gets them tips. Hooters, they get tips. Twin Peaks, they get tips. Titan cheerleaders, for all I know, they get tips. All within the public eye. Not one thing is said about them. Not one parent's going to sit there and be like, I can't believe I brought my child to this establishment and there's this girl with her chest out in short shirts, and what am I supposed to do with that? Nothing. Shut up and enjoy your wings. That's the establishment you walked into. But let this be known. This is targeting LGBTQ plus members. This is. Oh, children, I saw a child giving $1 to a drag queen. It's a tip. Have you not heard of tips? Well, what messages it send? Absolutely nothing. It shows your ignorance of accepting other people's cultures. It shows your hypocrisy. These are the same people talking about, I love Jesus. Jesus loves everybody. But you don't. These are the same people that will sit there and say, well, we're just protecting our children. They do that bullshit. We're protecting our children. Really? Tennessee's education level? Have you noticed lately? Public education is in the toilet. Graduation rates are a joke. Dropout rates are increasing. Teen pregnancy is high. And at the same time, you want to talk about protecting children from drag queens? That's your gripe? Are you effing kidding me? That's your gripe. Keep in mind, that's what the target is. This is the whole thing about conservative Republicans. See, what they always try, they always, the intention is behind what they really want to do. And trust me, in Tennessee, along with 4 other states, this is what they're trying to do. So for anybody that's confused about this, I support LGBTQ+. I think Drag Queen Story Hour is a wonderful thing because at least they are helping out children far better than our state and city legislatures are. Yes, I said it. Especially from the fact of the matter that when you think about what Republicans are attacking, they're also ignoring. What I mean by that is, this story here. An Ohio teacher told principals using students' preferred pronouns violated her religion. She was forced to resign. The teacher, Vivian Garrity, according to the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is, again, a conservative think tank, said that she should have not been in a position to choose, quote unquote, between her faith and her job. This woman, at that middle school that was showing there, had a student who wanted to be associated with their new gender and their pronouns. The teacher refused to do that on the basis of their religion. It went against their religious beliefs. You've probably heard this before. I can't do this because it's my religious beliefs. I can't give this gay couple a marriage license because it goes against my religious beliefs. I can't sell you this ham because it goes against my religious beliefs. You are a public servant. Unless you work in a religious institution, whether it's a Christian private school or anything of that nature, then that comes with the territory. I mean, there's schools out here in Tennessee, like DCA, for example. It's a Christian school, comes with the territory. But if you are a public servant, which means that you're an educator, 911 first responder, anything of that nature, if you work for the public, I don't know why it's so hard to understand this, but your religious beliefs take a back seat. You serve the public. And again, I've always said this best, that the people you serve may or may not believe in the same things you do, but there is a consensus of common law that we all follow. But I find it interesting in this place that this teacher who was forced to resign, which, by the way, she wasn't forced to, it simply put, acknowledge the student by how they want to be acknowledged. But it goes against my beliefs because I don't believe in that. I can give a shit what you believe in. Acknowledge the child how they want to be acknowledged. It's that simple. Kim Porter, which again was a county clerk in Kentucky. I use her as a reference all the time. I use her as a reference because she said, well, it's against my religion to give out marriage licenses to same-sex couples. You're in a position that can affect lives within that state, within that county, and yet you choose not to do your job because of your religion. I'm sorry. If your religion prevents you from doing your job, go into theology, join a cemetery, join a church, work for a church. At least then your job is based on your religion. But if your religion keeps you from doing a job, do us all a favor. Don't be mad that the public serves by public laws and not by your religious laws. If you don't like it, like I said, plenty of theological employment you can go into. But if you're going to be a public servant, again, just acknowledge them. You made a mountain out of a mole for no other reason except for doing what you should have done in the first fucking place. Even more so in Texas, where you have a superintendent that ordered school librarians to remove LGBTQ plus books, that the federal government, Department of Education, is now investigating, that Granbury Independent School District in Texas, I know, Texas, I know, has decided that any books dealing with sexuality and gender have to be removed from the school district by librarians. Now, we've covered this story before because, again, this is what we talked about just a few months ago, where they tried to give parents carte blanche over what teachers teach their kids. Keep in mind, at first, it was targeting people of color. It was targeting LGBTQ+, and it was also targeting CRT, something that was not taught in any school unless you're going to law school. And now you have the ACLU, which is looking into this along with the Department of Education about what the superintendent to try to do. And it just amazes me so that the quote unquote from the superintendent, and this is what he said, I acknowledge that there are men that think they're women and there are women that think they're men. I don't have any issues with what people want to believe, but there's no place for it in our libraries. This is the reason why I defend libraries so much. Number one, libraries are the true bastion of all educational and formative books. You may not agree with a book, but a book has a place in a library. It does. Just like Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul belongs in a library, just like The Purpose-Driven Life, which is a very famous religious book, belongs in a library. Just like 50 Shades of Grey, which for some religious people would be like, oh, that's just female porn. Really? These are the same women that read Danielle Steele novels when I was going to church. Still belongs in a library. Just like comic books, anime, manga, all belong in a library. Why? Because I say this all the time on other podcasts. Libraries and comic book stores are the places where a child's imagination can run. I encourage reading. When you read, not only does it increase your wording, it actually helps you do better in education. It helps your critical thinking. reading empowers people. And that's what a library is designed to do. It is designed to empower not just kids, but everyone, because it's supposed to. That's its initial intention to do. But you have those out there that believe, again, that there's a common agenda. You have those out there that believe there's a common agenda. Oh, well, the LGBTQ plus community is trying to turn people. Black people are using CRT to make white people feel bad about themselves. They swear up and down there's an agenda, but no other information out there to prove it otherwise. That alone tells you the level of bullshit they are willing to go. At the same time, you're worried about drag queens reading to kids and actually making a law to prevent that from happening. That's true bullshit. But in other news, I did want to cover this because Mark Cuban is taking on the pharmaceutical industry. And again, this just goes to show you that if you want to change anything, whether it's the industry or Congress, you're going to need one thing besides people: money.
You got to have like a real office somewhere.
No, this is it.
No, this is it.
Complete with concrete floor and thrift store worthy furniture. That's when I was 16 in junior achievement.
And you were good.
Oh, I was great. The windowless office may not be what you'd expect for someone estimated to be worth nearly $5 billion, but the confidence fits. Put the money where it has an impact. For the past year, Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and a regular on Shark Tank,
And so for those reasons, I'm out.
has been trying to impact the world of prescription drugs.
And one of the first things you said about all of this, if I may quote you back to you, was that you intended to F up the pharma industry.
Yeah, I was comprehensive. I didn't use the word F or the letter F.
So how are you doing on that goal?
They still don't know we exist, but at the same time, we're impacting the lives of, million plus people. In just 10 months, he says, his 1.5 million online customers can choose from about 350 generic medications. Cuban is so confident it will work, he is funding the entire thing himself. How much has he spent? More than a bag of chips.
100 million?
It's a lot, yeah.
More than that.
Yeah, it's a lot. So is it working? NBC News selected several drugs to compare, and prices are, as claimed, often lower than competitors, sometimes costing even less than a patient's copay. This leukemia drug retails at a pharmacy chain for more than $1,500 a month. With insurance, a typical copay is $30, but at Cost Plus, no insurance needed, $19.40.
Are there bad guys, from your perspective, morally bad guys driving these prices up?
I'd say that they're misleading, and they try to create the perception that the patient comes first, and they don't. He says he's able to offer lower prices by bypassing insurers and middlemen, and even plans to make some medications in his own facility. And he says transparency is key. On his bills, customers see what Cost Plus paid for the medication, along with a 15% markup, a $3 pharmacy fee, and a $5 shipping fee. The concept is very simple. We want to be the low-cost provider of any medication we're legally able to sell. We're a lean, mean medication selling machine. Cuban says he's not making money yet, but says for now, that's okay. It's the right thing to do. I have money, and we will make money. I don't want this to seem like it's completely altruistic. It will be profitable.
So to the cynical out there, this is a great way to suck people in, and then you raise the price.
No, it's a great way to suck people in, and where we can lower the price. And hopefully they tell all their friends.
Medication.
That is just what Christina Costa did. Her Instagram video now pinned to Cuban's feed.
I have epilepsy and brain cancer and anxiety.
Costa told NBC News she's never met Cuban, but that using Cost Plus drugs is saving her nearly 90% on her medications every month. This is the only company, the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drugs company, is the only company I've ever put my name on, because this is what I want my kids to be proud of me for. To that end, he says he will not be satisfied until he's able to lower the price of insulin and a host of other life-saving medications. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News.
Now, don't get me wrong. Mark Cuban, for what he's doing, is very honorable. It really is. The thing about it is, and I've said this before, with prescriptions and healthcare in America, is that the problem with healthcare in America, it's a for-profit business. That's the problem, especially when you look at life-saving medication like insulin, cancer, certain ailments, pain medication. Those things that have to ensure somewhat of a stable quality of life all have price tags. Even though currently Biden and company were able to get the cost of insulin to be capped at $35. So don't get me wrong, it's a great thing that they were able to get the cost, because keep in mind, insulin, depending on who the manufacturer was, were increasing prices on medication to the point to where those that needed insulin had to ration it, which is a very dangerous thing to do, or go without, which is an extremely dangerous thing to do, especially if you are a diabetic. And like I said, other medications like asthma and things of that nature. Now, again, he is taking on the one thing that most pharmaceutical companies and healthcare insurance companies don't want to happen, because for all those that don't know, the U.S. is a closed drug market. What I mean by that is that the drug market in the U.S. is only specific to Canada and another country, and that's it. It doesn't have an international market, because why? The healthcare companies in America prefer it that way. They can control the pricing, they can control the market, they control the profit. You know how I said that everything goes back to a for-profit business? Now, what Mark Cuban is doing is, he's upsetting the market. That his prescription company is basically going to Shark Tank everybody, if you will. And nothing wrong with that, because as much as I see Biden being progressive, I don't see him going after healthcare enough to where not only one, we need to be under a unified system, but number two, that we need to see life-saving medications be at zero. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Any life-saving medication should not be charged. It should be zero, because let's be honest, the reason why we call it life-saving is because without it, you die. So therefore, it is amazing to me that we are living in a society where you have to pay for medication in order to live, versus that medication being covered by your health insurance at no cost to you. So therefore, you can continue living or having a suitable lifestyle. But don't get me wrong, I like what Cuban's doing. But it just goes to show you how messed up the drug market is in the U.S. And that, yes, if it was open to international markets, if we were open to everybody, watch it. Because I said this before, if the U.S. drug market was not closed but open, and we saw massive competition among others, the prescription prices would change. The same prescriptions that you can get in Brazil or China or Australia or even some places in Canada are drastically different than what you would get here. It's crazy. That's why why do you think most people literally go overseas or out of the country to get surgeries that would cost them thousands of dollars less than you would get here in the US? Again, I hate to say this, but until we change the mentality that healthcare in America is a for-profit system, we are going to continually run into this problem. But kudos to Cuban for taking his money and investing himself and is trying to change the drug market landscape. Can't be mad at that. The last story I got, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, again, talking about Biden, he and his administration is looking to lift the Title 42 amendment, which was the pandemic statute that former failure-in-chief Donald Trump put in place to limit the number of number of illegals coming into the country due to pandemic. Well, Biden and them are pushing to get that lifted, and if so, may lead to more immigrants more immigrants trying to cross the borders.
Scenes in El Paso, including these migrants climbing over a border fence, others going under barbed wire put up by Texas National Guard. All part of an ongoing surge of illegal border crossings here, and coming just as the Biden administration is asking the Supreme Court to lift a pandemic border restriction known as Title 42. A move border officials say would send the number of illegal border crossings soaring even higher to a record 10,000 per day. The Supreme Court has temporarily blocked lifting Title 42 at the request of 19 Republican states. But the Biden administration asking the court to reverse that in a filing tonight saying Title 42 is no longer necessary to protect public health. Meanwhile, in El Paso, officials say they're facing a humanitarian crisis.
It's about 33 degrees here in downtown El Paso, where migrants are sleeping and huddling together for warmth. You can see the city has come through here to clean out trash. Others have donated clothes. And right now, officials say they're overwhelmed.
We spoke to Natalie, who traveled from Venezuela with her daughter Rosa, the girl without shoes in frigid temperatures after losing them on the journey. They fell off, Natalie says. Her cheeks are burned from the trip and the cold. Natalie told us she was surprised that they were able to just walk across the border into El Paso without being stopped by Border Patrol. I walked through, she told us. And then we met Gabriela.
How are you keeping warm?
Our hands are freezing and our ribs, the headaches, the body, feet, it's unbearable, she says. El Paso is in its 4th day of a state of emergency. Officials saying city resources are maxed out and they're pleading for federal help.
There's not enough money. There's no community that can take an influx like that.
We have seen a significant increase.
Ruben Garcia runs a network of 15 migrant shelters in El Paso and said he has had to turn migrants away because they don't have room.
What do you think things will look like here in El Paso when Title 42 is eventually lifted?
I think it's something that we probably can't even describe. The numbers will be very, very high.
And Julia, tonight you're learning the Biden administration is considering some changes at the border. What can you tell us?
Lester, after facing criticism over its border policies, the Biden administration is weighing making it harder to claim asylum at the southern border and making it easier to apply from abroad.
Okay, so as you guys can see, yes, we are going to have an influx of immigrants coming through. Title 42, which is again being looked at by the Supreme Court, may or may not get lifted. If it is lifted, then yes, immigrants crossing over may increase. But here's the problem that they're not saying. A lot of these states, a lot of these areas are crossing into New Mexico, Texas, Florida, other spots along the southern border. There's nothing wrong. I say it before and I'll say it again. These are the same states, for the most of them, are rejecting immigrants because, well, Republican states. We don't want the influx in because they'll repeat the same thing. We don't know if these are murderers or rapists coming over here. We don't know. It could be other countries sending their worst. Sound familiar? Sounds like Trump. Every Republican says the same thing. And I've said this before. This nation is a land of immigrants, except for Native Americans. For Native Americans, this is pretty much home. For the rest of us, we just got, well, for some of us, our ancestors kind of got dropped off here, but that's not the point. The point is we are a land of immigrants, and it's not like we're running out of room. And it's not like the states who have the ability to take on these immigrants are not running out of resources. They're actually rejecting resources by the Biden administration. If you believe Governor Santos out of Florida, he's flying these folks on planes to Martha's Vineyard, which Martha's Vineyard said, cool, we got the money, we got the space, no problem. You have Governor Greg Abbott busing migrants to liberals, to what they consider liberal states like Washington, D.C. And these are the same people who have the ability to accept government assistance and get these people what they need. Have the ability and choose not to. I even say in my home state of Tennessee, where idiot Governor Bill Lee was like, well, we don't agree with this. The Title 42 is in for a reason and we don't have the space. Tennessee does. Every state does. No state is crowded. Cities may be on one hand, but no state's crowded. At the same time, Trump, although being failure in chief, instead of sending National Guard and Army to the borders to protect the borders, what you should have sent was immigration lawyers, processing, staff, and equipment to get these people into asylum and temporary housing. Again, it's not like we don't have the space, but it is amazing to me. This always goes back to our immigration policy in the U.S. Oh, it's broken because no one tried to fix it. Every time someone tried to, every time an idea has been presented, it's always been like, no, we just can't allow illegals in our country. Yet Ellis Island in New York would have something to say about that, especially a certain plaque, give me your tired, give me your tired, you're poor, you're hungry. some, sound familiar? The point is, when it comes to this kind of thing, as far as immigrants immigrate to the United States, why not? But it kind of goes back into a certain fear where a certain male population understands that in the coming years, they are going to be the minority. Why? Their population is declining. Whose populations are increasing? Minorities. So maybe the next 10 years, maybe the next 15 years, minorities will take over and become the majority, and the Mayo will become the minority. And the fear they always say on Fox News is these immigrants that come in can become citizens. Those citizens can vote. It is amazing to me how that level of paranoia is the reason why our immigration system, much like our VA system, still remains broken when it can literally easily be fixed, but they prefer it broken. Just saying. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our Feel Good podcast, for our Feel Good segment, guys, because usually on the Frack we got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes they lose your faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We're not too far off from Christmas. And so we want to leave it with a certain story because, let's be honest, Santa Claus is magical. Actually, Santa Claus has got the most easiest job on earth. Imagine for 364 days, that for one day, you have to work. And yes, Santa's magical because, number one, first and foremost, let me say this. Don't ruin it for kids, okay? Don't ruin it for kids and adults who still believe in it. I mean, yes, for all us who are adults, for all of us who study history, we know where Christmas comes from. We do. Let it go. Because a lot of people just like believing in Santa Claus and Christmas and things of that nature. And some of y'all still believe that your football teams will still become Super Bowl champions. Some of y'all still believe that man's going to come back in your life. Some believe that you keep pining for that woman, she's eventually going to recognize you. We all believe in stupid stuff. Pick your poison. That being said, it's supposed to be a feel-good segment. That did not go the way I thought it would. But that being said, guys, Santa Claus, he's a guy that you can't have a bad day around a Santa Claus. And Santa Claus being white or black or whatever you choose him to be, there's always a Santa Claus that goes the extra mile, and this one did it for these kids.
A lot like Christmas at the Gaylord Resort in Maryland. Presents under the tree, stockings hung by the chimney with care. And these children hoping Santa Charles will soon be there. Santa Charles is a fully authorized member of Santa Claus's team. The beard, the hat, even the key to Santa's workshop. He's also a member of the deaf community.
I'm so excited to be here with you all.
And he's traveling across the country this holiday season, lighting up the faces of fellow deaf and hard of hearing people.
That child sees it at Santa Claus. There's so much happiness.
For Kavan Woodard, it's a first.
I asked Santa Claus if I could get a dirt bike, and I want a black one. And Santa Claus said that I had to be a good boy, I had to listen to my mom, and hopefully I get my wish.
It's an experience his mother April didn't have as a child.
My mom said it was just important for me to say hi and give him a hug, and he would just give me a thumbs up. And that was it.
Parents watching the joy in their children's eyes.
There are so many Santa Claus out there, and kids are loving the experience, but deaf children don't have that. So to be able to connect is really important and amazing. To see him laugh and make those expressions with Santa Claus was the best, right?
The Christmas spirit alive in every language. Gary Grumbach, NBC News, National.
And I just thought that was cool because I always love to see a Santa that just tries to, make every kid, despite who they may be, always trying to make a kid, feel great, feel happy, feel heard. Like I said, you can't have a bad time around Santa. You really can't. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for watching, for liking, and letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Before we do get out here, some shameless plugging as usual. Shout out to my buddy Vaughn at BigBZA. You can find him on all socials at BigBZA. Whether he's making beats on his TikTok, but definitely check him out. Of course, for me, guys, you can find me Blackbox447 on all socials. Like and follow me as I usually post everything that I watch, review, and play, and some gem stuff because I do a couple push-ups. Again, guys, we are in the middle of the holiday season. I cannot stress this enough. If you got family, friends, loved ones, people you care about, check on them. because this time of season can be rough on some people, whether they lost family members or, just a rough time in general, but check on them. Make sure they're doing all right. Reason being, and also if you do feel lonely or if you have certain thoughts, there are services out there. There's help for you. Please reach out. You are not alone. But aside from that, check on your family, friends, loved ones. Have to spend some time with them. Like I said, don't wait for the holidays to get together, but still check on them. That's all I'm saying. Also, WC got the ticker at the bottom and make that just a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that in your browser, take you to the link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Out Here, Get Bit, and of course the Offense Podcast. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. And if you like what we did, let me know. If you didn't like what we did, let me know. I still want to know everything that you guys think about and continue this discussion. Aside from that, guys, like I said, the holiday season is real. As you have already seen, we are going to be Mother Nature is going to just hit us with a cold blast from the East Coast to the West Coast. So again, if you are traveling, please be safe. If you're going to be traveling in high traffic areas, please wear a mask, protect yourself. If you're sick, please stay home because, again, we are still in the pandemic area where, again, you can still catch COVID, variants, RSV, and flu. So above all else, protect yourself. You'll protect each other. The last thing I'll say about How the Frack we got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, people. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but present you a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general in the armed forces, all great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up but your paycheck? Why do we keep electing the same politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.